his face, just tinged his skin, ashen. It was the first time I wanted to kiss anyone. His body was sprawled before a scrawny garden that grew in front of our building, right below one of the entrance arches, badly covered by half-dry flowers and ivy veins that barely enshrouded the crude wire structure. In spite of it all, Death had chosen a botanical frame with a certain gritty Art Nouveau flair for Ephraim. His mouth was slightly agape, and his lips fleshy, not yet withdrawn. His hair was messy, and his eyelids somewhere between wakefulness and sleep. If it's possible for a 5-year-old to fall in love, then my love poured completely onto that tragic wreck. My inner life unfurled over that steel frame of pain and misery, projecting myself floating, translucent above that corpse, kissing him with the lightness of beings that do not exist, not trying to wake him from his lethargy, not so he would kiss me back. I simply yearned with my entire soul to kiss something so lovely and helpless, something that seemed fallen from heaven, left like an ex-voto on my doorstep. Something that, amid the sound and fury of drooling mothers and fathers who covered their mouths to repress their sobs, I somehow understood belonged to me. The witch at the end of my street. The wig was super short, thin as a rake, and wrinkled in such a way that as she stirred, she seemed to be interrupting some inexorable mummification. She was always old. She was made up like a caricature of an old lady, with blue eyeshadow, black liner, red lips, and a perfectly cracked foundation of Mona Lisa potato-colored skin. She smelled like dead flowers, forgotten in a drawer, and constantly whispered a string of unintelligible words under her breath, like a secret prayer laced with poison. The poison had to do with her surly mocking gaze. Her seriousness wasn't the judgmental kind, but rather the type that presaged a hearty laugh, as if every time she looked at someone, an embarrassing secret about them was revealed to her. She lived alone at the end of the street, a row of 3-story red brick apartment buildings with concrete stairs at the front. That architectural motif repeated throughout the entire neighborhood, occasionally interrupted by some battered lot flush with broken glass, scraps of aluminum foil, needles, and abandoned building materials. If we could have spied the pavement from above, those gaps in the rows of apartment buildings must have made it look like diseased gums, where enormous teeth had been yanked out with no apparent logic, leaving behind an incurable infection and lumpy holes. Besides the park and the housing itself, the rest was dumping grounds, empty lots where the neighborhood kids played. And when they were old enough to shoot up, where they went to die. We grew up like that. Generations of working-class kids dreaming up whole worlds in the very same plots that one day might become our final resting places. The garden didn't reach the wig's corner. The view from her ground floor apartment, if she'd ever pulled up the green blinds that covered her windows day and night, was of garbage cans. Our buildings were part of a large Francoist housing development built in the 50s, dubbed the Great San Blas. The former name, Cowridge, must have stunk of sweat and shit to the fascist authorities. Meanwhile, the debt collectors, who combed door to door, referred to it as the motherless neighborhood, because they were usually greeted by children who should have been at school. It hadn't occurred to the visionaries of the regime that more than 30,000 families would expect schools nearby for their kids, and it was years before that need was met, along with the need for running water and for shops. Workers were never treated by Franco's regime as anything more than pack mules, to be herded into the city's outskirts. This generated a class consciousness in the neighborhood that later authorities, during the transition to democracy following Franco's death, conspired to weed out with jabs of heroin, so cheap they were practically free. In the late 70s and 80s, drugs were the last.